We are live with another episode of Roll Hide, Don't Die. I have two wonderful guests with me here today. So we're going to start with Kristin. Go ahead and introduce yourselves. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi, I'm Kristin. You can find me on Twitter at the IT Pirate Now. I do a whole bunch of stuff. I stream. I have a podcast called RollForLore, which is a D&D monster lore podcast. I love monsters, so a bunch of friends in the gaming community and those who are, creating content join me, and we just kind of geek out about monsters and gaming. I'm also involved with ATL D&D, based here in Atlanta, Georgia. We do D&D pub crawls and a whole bunch of events on a regular basis. Today we had our D&D brunch to celebrate Pride Month. So yeah, a lot of rainbows everywhere, and it was fantastic. And then we just have regular games pretty much every day during the week at some local bars. So yeah, do charity games. Basically, if I can get involved with any form of game, I'm there. So it's not exclusive to D&D. I love learning all the different systems, and yeah, just meeting all the wonderful people in the community.
That is awesome. I have to ask, I know Atlanta is a big place. I've been there. Do you know any of the folks from D4 D&D? They were my first episode, and they're actually Atlanta based and do stuff with Rock Punch, ATL, and stuff.
I haven't met them, but I think I've come across like some messages, because there's also a lot of really popular D&D podcasts based out of Atlanta, Georgia. There's like North by Northwest, there's Loot and Dagger. So yeah, there's like a lot of connections there, and we all just support each other and are just like, okay, when are we going to hang out next? And so I think I came across some messages about like needing to hang out, and kind of got in the loop of that thread, but haven't met him personally.
I'm kind of upset because I grew up on the Alabama Georgia line, and it was like
Hmm.
nothing for us to get into Atlanta. But the whole time I was, prime, let's get into D&D and RPGs age of middle school, high school. I didn't really have a car, and I didn't have the money to be driving my car once I got one to Atlanta to be gaming. And then now I'm on the other side of the country and have disposable income and a vehicle, and I'm living in the middle of nowhere, and there's no nerd stuff. But I cannot tell you the number of people I bump into that were like within an hour and a half of where I used to live, and it's just like,
Flips table. Ah.
yeah, the trials and tribulations of putting together an RPG group.
Mm.
Exactly.
All right, Randy, tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi everyone, I'm Randy Knapp. I'm a professional video game developer. You've seen my work in Halo 5, Guild Wars 2, most recently at PopCap, working on Bejeweled and Plants vs. Zombies games. But right now my big thing is that I'm the lead designer of Zafir tactical role-playing game, which is on Kickstarter right now. It's a brand new role-playing game system with a focus on tactics and inclusive character design. Uh, I am Seattle-based and grew up on D&D, like you said, middle school and high school, and ran the high school gaming club that was pretty much just a D&D and Magic every Friday for 4 hours. So now I'm kind of like stepping away from my professional video game thing to try my hand at some amateur indie game design.
When I know you're looking at RPG game design, do you also do any like board game type stuff, or is it all tabletop RPGs?
Sometimes I'm like a huge board game fan, so uh, really like into that kind of stuff. But I haven't done a whole lot of actual design for board games. I've got a couple of card game designs like kicking around in the archives of the back of my head,
I haven't
but nothing that I've really worked on.
I haven't done too much homebrew because normally about the time I've got a system down enough to start homebrewing in it, I'm usually like, oh, a
Shiny.
piece of candy. There's this new thing that's come out, and so like I normally stick pretty close to the rules on most things, and I haven't designed my own thing yet because my list of want to do is massive and always growing. Um, but I've never actually looked at board game design because me personally, I feel like I could do RPG design and like make things that people would use, but creating a game from the ground up kind of scares me.
Yeah,
And I don't know if I would be good at making it fair, making it fun, and all of the things that I look for in a board game.
sure.
So,
I
but
mean, you know how it is. It's playtest, playtest,
yeah,
playtest, playtest.
Mhm.
Just
I
never
mean,
stop playtesting.
it's the
Very
same
fun
way.
every time.
Even some of the stuff I do, like I kind of write a bunch of little one shots because I'll grab people off of Twitter and grab people out of my Discord and just be like, let's go play a thing. But normally, like the first time is literally a play test. I have like, okay, 5 random Twitter people. You guys are gonna do this so that when I do this for my friends, it's much more well put together, and I
I
can
realize all the crazy stuff that my players are going to try.
yeah,
I'll
because
have something, have an answer for it.
the role of the DM is you put a path in the forest with 2 branches, and okay, they can go left or right, and the party either goes straight, or they never leave town, or they burn the woods down, or whatever it is. So I like,
Always burn the woods down.
yeah. So both of y'all play and game master, or just a player, just a game master
Yeah, I run games as well.
I'm like exclusively a game master all the time.
forever
I
GM
don't
life?
know how it ended up that way. Uh, Part of the reason that I wrote my own RPG is sometimes I struggle with getting a lot of enjoyment out of playing the games. I always love role playing or doing the dungeon master,
Right.
cartography, making the game design aspect of it, um, and work and like playing with the players as the DM, but playing like the game of D&D for me has always been like, oh, I wish there was more.
I think that's why so many folks get into homebrew is
Yeah,
they did something in another system that just doesn't exist in D&D, or they were used to playing D&D and then they swapped to another system and they're like, well, that thing that I really like doesn't quite fit here. What can I? And so they start tinkering, and I think that's why so many folks get into making their own stuff is because there's no one perfect RPG, and there
oh,
never will
for
be.
sure.
And even
And
if
Yeah.
like D&D is the perfect thing for your group, even as you play it, like you're gonna find that you want to change and grow because
and
that's
I
how
don't want to
people work.
disparage D&D at all. I've got friends over at Wizards that are doing awesome stuff. I'm like super excited that 5e like is the way it is, so that it's as popular as it is, that people love it the way that it is. But I uh, there's always just this little bit of me that's like, I wish that I made more important decisions on my turn as a player in combat. I love the role play stuff, and I think that part is fine. Collaborative storytelling is always like part of the thing, but the actual like coming from video games, maybe this is why, but like I see the systems and I see uh, the numbers and get a little crunchy and kind of go, I wish there was some more for me as a player.
Um, so we've all been talking about D&D. What systems is everyone actively playing, or what do you mostly keep in your wheelhouse?
So I run like a it's kind of like a homebrew, but inspired by some other content. I kind of started to incorporate the cipher system into my D&D game because I currently play that on Sundays. I'll be playing that after this. But there is a lot of components that I liked from that system that I felt could give more role playing opportunities for my players who are really strong. I've been playing with them for a long time, so I know that they're experienced and familiar with the D&D system. So I was like, hey, I was thinking about like kind of mixing it up a little bit and incorporating some other game systems components that I liked of those systems. Are you guys okay with that? They were totally on board. Just kind of like making it more like having more of an incentive if they get a natural 20, because in the Cypher system you could also get like a magical effect.
Right.
So and it's pretty open. I like that. It's like, well, what do you want that magical effect to be? And if you can't come up with anything, like I can suggest some stuff, but it's kind of like, what do you want to do? Like create this world and we'll like navigate it together, as opposed to what do I see, like tell me what I see. So I
Yeah.
like giving that freedom to the players. But yeah, for the longest time I was just like, oh, if there's a game, yeah, I'll play it. Like Shadow of the Demon Lord, Vampire the Masquerade, I was just wanting to learn every single system. So yeah,
I'm
you name it,
I'm
I probably played
kind
it.
of still in that point. I got like 5 half-built one-shots because I have like Cypher things,
Hmm.
and I have Genesis things, and I have Star Wars FFG things, all being built in
Yeah.
Roll20. But like I said, I get halfway through and I'm like, man, that module from the Strange is looking pretty tasty. Oh, and everyone I know is having fun playing Delta Green.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll look into that. What? Mouse Guard? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that makes me sad now. Because
Oh
won't have
yeah,
a movie.
the
Well,
movie.
hopefully someone will. Yeah.
Um, quick question then, since you mentioned Cipher, are you talking about Cipher itself, or do you Numenera, or the Strange, or just
Um.
the
So
generic Cipher system?
yeah. So just the Cipher system. We actually kind of created. It's like an Afro-futuristic game. So like if you think of like Wakanda, that's the game setting that we're in. But we just pull from like the character classes and the mechanics of it. Yeah, we just created this story together, which evolved from, the GM just asking us a couple questions like, what is this major event that happened? Yeah, there was this war, and what, it was like little questions from each side. Like, what was the one thing that this side did that maybe was a secret? So it kind of evolved from like one question out into many. So yeah, that's kind of our world right now. And trying to expand and like having more inclusion and being LGBT friendly, and just having like diverse characters and players. So yeah, that was important to have in the game.
I mean, yeah, I mean that sort of stuff is the same. As I get more into this streaming, I'm trying to make sure that I keep my channel and my community open to that kind of stuff. It's hard. It's hard running a community and trying to please everyone. But I think that's the really important thing, especially in the modern world where as you run your channels, you keep everything so connected. You need to create those spaces where everyone's going to feel that they can be themselves, even though RPGs allow you to be somebody who's not you, right? But
Right.
you should still be comfortable as a person, even if you're pretending to be some random cyborg orc who does whatever. Like,
I
I,
think the other thing about that, just to chime
yeah,
in, I
jump in,
think
man.
one of the most important things to me about gaming right now is that we're seeing a lot of push for more representation in the actual games that we're seeing. It's not just like, oh, you can be whoever you want and that's okay. It's
Yeah.
like also there's like some gay black folks and some trans folks and like a variety
Yeah,
of
non-binary
queerness that's
elves
like
being like in
represented.
official modules and stuff. And
Absolutely, absolutely. And then in your own personal games, right? Like
yeah,
I definitely have done the classic like, I'm a dwarf and I'm Scottish and I'm an elf and I
and
we're all,
yeah,
very like
Scottish dwarf with a
European.
drinking
Uh,
problem, and a
yeah,
pansy
and
elf
like,
that likes trees.
but now like as a more mature adult than when I was as a teenager, like I have a lot of focus on like, no, I want to make sure that in this world you see people that are like all of us.
Yeah, real, and
Yeah,
that's how you can really make the world seem real, is by having people who seem like people instead of just like, oh, I'm the poor defenseless woodcutter's wife, whatever will I do? Like,
mhm.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and it's like it's a challenge, but also just a responsibility for those who do stream or create content to be aware that I've played with some that go by they them pronouns, and
Hmm.
some will like slip up and have to be reminded. And I was like, well, I'm gonna play this character and like put myself in those pronoun shoes. And I mean, it was a challenge to keep on like being conscious of those pronouns, but I think it was also really good to be aware of that, and practice that, um having different pronouns. And yeah, just getting into the practice of being aware of those different
It
those norms. Yeah.
it's an interesting thought. I'm trying to find the words to describe
Mhm.
it here. It's amazing how much playing RPGs and being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes for the game also makes you be able to do that for real people, and then vice versa. And so being more open-minded as a person allows you to be open-minded to play more characters, but also sitting in a basement and playing non-binary elves with your friends makes you be like, oh yeah, well, that's a thing that is a thing. I should probably keep that in mind.
Yeah.
um, I thought of this like halfway through, and I have to say it. The hardest thing about uh, how to word it. The hardest thing I've found, and it's really funny, is I always want to play with my the Pride D&D ampersand shirt, and I keep
Uh-huh.
forgetting that I have a green screen. I can't tell you how many times I've got like 2 minutes into a video and be like, oh no, I have a hole in my chest. Oh, I need to
Just like
learn
a
how to.
floating head.
Yeah, I need to learn the key better so that I can totally play with my Pride shirts and stuff like that.
Nice.
Damn green screens.
Oh. Yeah, I bought there's a, I think it's with the
Hmm.
Lambert house, that they have like D&D rainbow swag. So yeah,
Yep.
I just picked up some sunglasses yesterday that, yeah, and some things that hopefully I can rock at Gen Con. So that'll be the my
I
first year attending.
Nice.
I snagged one for me and then a couple for the wife, and we were wearing the Pride shirts around San Diego Comic Con last
Yeah.
year, and I can't tell you how many people were like, "Dude, where did you get the shirt?" And I had to be like, the fundraiser thing ended. They're talking about doing it like full time, but like it was
Yeah.
totally a thing. Keep an eye out. It's a thing.
Right.
But
It's
between that
totally,
and I have the Run DMC logo. It's Run D&D, and like
yeah.
that one gets a lot of. I love my D&D swag, so I got my bunkers and badasses on right now, and
Nice.
Okay.
uh,
Yeah, kind of representing ATL D&D. So
there you
yeah,
go.
got our own swag. So
I got a question, since we talked a little bit about the settings that Kristen's playing in, and I brought up Numenera, and I really love the Numenera setting. Randy,
Uh-huh.
the actual setting, like what's the flavor? What's the elevator pitch for your game? Like, describe it.
All right. So Zafir is set in a Magitech modern world. So like imagine like a world like with the technology level of the 1930s.
Okay.
So trains and telephones and guns and stuff. But instead of steam and coal and oil, it's powered by magic crystals and ensnared spirits and that kind of thing.
So very Eberron. Eberron, they like bind elementals to run
Eberron,
trains and stuff like that.
Eberronish, more Final Fantasy sometimes.
Yeah, there you go.
And but like more modern feeling than Eberron. Eberron still feels to me like a
Yeah,
fantasy.
Eberron's still Magitech, and it's set in like medieval. But if you just sped up the clock, the same way
Exactly.
like
Exactly.
Shadowrun is to D&D, just
Yeah,
fast
yeah.
fast
Taking the
forward, but
clock forward. This is
stop
the
before
same
you
kind
get to Cyberpunk.
yeah. So this is like a modern World War I, World War II era in this world, set in a Magitech world. Um, but I've strongly themed it towards Middle Eastern themes, especially Zoroastrian mythology. So I pulled a lot of stuff in from Zoroastrian mythology, especially when it comes to monsters and that kind of thing.
I've nerded out about Middle Eastern and up into Turkey and those kind of area,
Hmm.
getting more of that influence into RPGs. Because when you say like, when you think about the most popular settings, you always seem to have like medieval Europe,
Right.
some jungle somewhere, and like Egypt, but with elves.
Right.
And people tend to forget about, especially the Middle East. The reason that the Middle East is what it is because of where it sits geographically. And so countries like Afghanistan and stuff like that were really important in the history of our world because the trade routes and stuff through there. So there's a lot of interesting culture that you can get from places like Afghanistan and Istanbul and Istanbul slash Constantinople and
Yeah,
like
and I pulled a lot of inspiration from specifically Persian epics, like so Iranian history.
I knew that my knowledge of the old Persian Empire and ability to speak Afghani would pay off someday.
Nice.
Yeah, in our Sunday Cypher game, the war that happened blew up Europe, so we don't have Europe in our setting. So it's like everywhere but Europe exists.
Are you playing in a world that's like I'm not that familiar with Cypher. Is it specifically designed to be played over in like a real world situation?
Ours is it's like futuristic for ours. Yeah, again, like um having that kind of like Wakanda-esque,
Sure.
powered by, you know, this like certain materials that they have. But everything is like pretty futuristic. There's, cyborgs, magitech, like, yeah, we got shot out of a high-rise building by a kind of granny that was on a magitech like hover around thing, so she kind of blew us out of the sky. But yeah, then we're able to like get that and make our own kind of like repairs and upgrades to it. But yeah, and again, it's kind of like if we want something to exist, we just say what we want and make sense in character, and then can either like go with it or it gets vetoed. But yeah, I like the fact that it's like it challenges you to like try to come up with stuff, what would exist in this
But
world. Or
between
yeah.
Cypher and the Star Wars Fantasy Flight systems, I love that both of those have such a good like player buy-in to affect
Hmm.
the scene and affect the world. To answer your question, Randy, about the Cypher system specifically, it's generic role playing. So if you wanted to play a World War One game, you could do that. If you wanted to play a
Yeah.
fantasy game, you could do that. It's like Genesis or Fate or any of the other generics where you just
You can
adjust
put
the
any
rules based
theme
on
setting
what
on top
what
of it.
thing you're
Sure.
doing.
Right.
There's multiple systems under the Cypher umbrella. It started with Numenera, which was
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
futuristic
Hmm.
fantasy,
Yeah.
like imagine Earth but billions and billions of years in the
Right.
future.
Right. It was
And
like a
so
fallen society kind of thing.
right, and so it's called the Ninth World because society has been built up and completely collapsed, whether we left and went to the stars or aliens invaded or whatever it was. The world has grown up to a point and then had a cataclysm 8 times previous, and we're in the ninth generation. And
Hmm.
so it's elves and fantasy stuff, but like your shield might be something that you crawled inside of a crashed star destroyer and pulled like the containment field off of one of its engines. And so like your sword might be the knife off of the front of a hunter killer Terminator robot, or
Sure.
make up whatever you want. But the point is technology is so advanced that it is no longer able to be distinguished from magic. So
Right.
you have people that can affect gravity or heat metal or whatever, and they could be tapping into magic. But there's also this like global Wi-Fi energy source, Tesla's kind of dream. But from that, Monty Cook Games backed up and made the generic setting, but then they also made the strange, and the strange kind of plays with the fact that Cypher is generic and can go anywhere. So in the strange, you could start out being sword and sorcery heroes, but then go through a wormhole and end up in 1930s America, or you know, in Rapture, BioShock Under the Ocean, or whatever. There's different iterations, and so you could jump from cyberpunk to fantasy to weird war to space opera.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Hashtag nerd knowledge.
So to kind of actually play on that, like to answer the other question that we started with was I've actually played like only D&D recently because the games that I've been running have been for really new players, right? Instead of like really experienced players. Now my workplace group is actually experienced players, but when you're trying to get a workplace game going, sometimes it's like you got to play kind of what's popular so that people know what's going on. But I just ran a game for my mom and my dad and my best friend and his wife, which was really awesome to run a game for my parents. And so because they were I have to say a funny story before I go on. When I was 13, I grew up kind of like conservative Christian, and I played Dungeons and Dragons with my friends, and I kind of came home and was like, yeah, hey parents, I played Dungeons and Dragons. Guess what? You know, a little rebellious. And my mom was like, oh really, hold on 1 second. She goes up to the attic and comes back down, and she has a peachy folder with her character from the 70s, her D&D character from the 70s, and like a ballpoint pen drawing of her like paladin character. And it was so awesome. And then I was like, oh okay, my parents are just as cool as me, I guess. When I was 13.
I like that you got out nerd critted by your mom.
I know, right. So but she hasn't played since then, so we set up a game a little while ago to get her back into it and get my dad into it because he loves board games and stuff like that. Had some more friends, and so having D&D just be like the standard, the thing that's kind of easy to get into because there's so much of it right now, like made more sense for the games that I've been playing.
I'm kind of the same way. Being military, I bounce around a whole lot, so every time I get to a new town, the order of operations is, hi new people, where are the board game groups? And then I get 10 to 15 folks that I know through playing Catan and whatever, and then I go, okay, you like board games, I bet you would like this thing, it's the one that they talk about in Stranger Things and stuff like that. Want to play some D&D? And then we play like a short arc of D&D, and it's like, okay, now you understand role playing and rolling dice and all this stuff. I've got this thing that I've been wanting to try, and about the time I get folks to like step into like Star Wars or interested in Call of Cthulhu or something like that, about that time somebody moves or I move or schedules change, and it's like, okay, back to the board game group. Okay, you guys liked Kingdom Builder, I bet you'll like blank.
I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm in my early 30s, and trying to get like 5 adults in the same room more than once a month on a regular basis is so hard.
Yeah, we actually have our home game like every other Tuesday, and I think it's already been like a month. Like we've only had one game. I'm like, okay, yeah, adulting is hard. So
that's why I do so much of my gaming online now, is because it's much easier to convince people like, hey, you can still do whatever you need to do at your house, just be like near the computer for like 3 hours on Thursday night, and like if you need to take 10 minutes to go do whatever, cool. But there's less of that like pack up everything and is the dog gonna be okay while we're gone, and like, no, just Thursday night I'll see you online. It'd be the same thing if we were sitting down to like do a WoW raid or any of those things I used to do back in the day, except Roll20, hooray.
Hooray. Roll20 hates me, so
why does Roll20 hate you?
I just roll terribly all the time.
It's amazing how even in the online age, nerds are such a superstitious group. We have actually gone in and copy pasted everything out of a guy's character sheet and deleted the sheet because we swore that the sheet was cursed.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I roll bad in general, but then it's like when you switch over to an electronic system,
probably,
and then like,
it's got to be the programmer's fault, right?
Yeah. I thought it was just me. I was like, okay, I'm not rolling dice now, but like I'm still rolling terribly. What is happening? So
I'll have to see if I can go dig it up. But he actually became a verb, like you Varused it, because Varus, our warlock, would always roll ones in like key moments. And I want to say it was like the final boss fight of Princes of the Apocalypse. He had advantage on his first 2 attacks, and he rolled both ones, and then a 1 on his third attack. And it's like, how do you roll 5 1s out of 6 dice, dude? Like,
I feel like I'm on that level with this person. I feel for them. Yeah, I have these like plans of playing like these rad like awesome characters. At one time I was going to play like a very like badass rogue, and yeah, that didn't happen because I kept on rolling ones, and one time I got like cooked into a croissant because I rolled a 1. It was like this whole bake off situation, and I was like, oh,
how do you end up in a croissant?
there is a bake off situation.
He just told you.
Yeah, well, I was trying to steal the secrets from the other team or like mess up their ingredients. Like they were making a pastry and I was going to try to put salt into their pastry so that we could win. But yeah, I rolled a 1 and then got baked into their croissants. So yeah.
So since we're talking about rolling terribly, one of my conversation starters that I like to have on my board of conversation injects here is there a time where you or your group was able to turn like an absolute fail into a total win? So starting with Randy, is there a time where like they rolled terribly, or you rolled terribly, or something just went absolutely off the rails, but it ended up being awesome in the end?
I can't think of one. I have kind of the opposite. One of the groups that I had in high school, we were playing a swashbuckling pirate type campaign, and one of the characters, you know how your characters will be like, I do this throwaway action, and you're like, all right, whatever, roll for it.
Yeah.
And so he was, his name was Richard, and he wanted to visit there was like a sort of respectable brothel in the town, and he said, you know what, I'm going to the brothel. And I said, all right, fine, just whatever. Are you gonna pass the time or what? He's like, I'm going to roll perform while I'm at the brothel. And he ended up rolling 3 20s in a row, like critical, super critical performance. And for the rest of the time, this like guild of prostitutes all knew him by name and by face and would give him special information and like special they were like his network of confidants, because they all knew his fame spread far and wide.
It's weird to, some games can't really handle skill challenges well, and it's weird to get yourself into and D&D's all right at it, but there are certain times where it's like, all right, make a history check, and then the wizard rolls a 2, and you're like, okay, the wizard who studied in a library his whole life has a 2. What's going on? And the barbarian's like, oh, I want to do it, and rolls a 19, and you're like, right. Okay, the guy that chews on sticks and grew up in a tent got a 19. Like as a GM, do I go, okay, yeah, you know this thing because of blank, or do I?
I mean that gets into like some pretty serious role-playing philosophy here, right? Yeah. Like the dungeon world idea of like, if you don't have a real consequence for failure, don't roll, just do the thing, right?
And I try to teach that when I'm teaching. I'll do workshops where I'll get like brand new people, and it'll just be 5 brand new players, and I'll run the first cave of the D&D 5e starter set or whatever. But I'll try to like, all right, guys, let me drop a couple of decades of nerd knowledge on you so that you can skip the hard parts up front and get out there. And I try to teach them that stuff, like, hey, as a GM, instead of trying to have an answer written down for every possibility, just focus on being super flexible. Like, you don't need to be ready for everything, just be ready for anything. Cool, that you can put that on a t-shirt. But the mindset of stop looking at your character sheet to see what you can do, tell me what you're doing, and I, as the GM, it's my job to say, yeah, you do that, or yeah, you can try that, roll a blank. Don't sit there and go, oh, my history sucks, I'm not going to roll at all. And
I think one of the things that's really good for players to practice is tell you what the outcome they desire as well, right? Like, it's not just like, oh, I make a strength check. It's, I want to like hold this door from like stop it from closing so the whole team can get through, right? And
Right.
then they like have this goal that they're going for, and you say, okay, awesome, now make a strength check. Like that sounds awesome. I want to see you succeed at that.
Yeah, but
And
you as the GM can also then go, you're the barbarian, you have an 18 strength. That sounds awesome. You do
right,
the
you
thing.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see which RPGs like create that mindset just as a default and which ones you kind of have to like nudge people towards it. But like Kristin was saying, there's certain things about games like Numenera and Star Wars, and I know I keep bringing them up. I really like them. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you get. Have either of y'all played the FFG Star Wars game?
I actually like just picked up a ton of it from my friend for free. I've never played it, but now I have all the rule books, so I'm gonna try it.
So the main
I
thing
played
about it,
Edge of the Empire. Is that?
yeah, that's
Okay.
the one we're talking about. So
Okay,
then you know
cool.
there's two dice axes, right? There's pass
Yeah.
fail and there's advantage and threat. And so yes. What you get though is there's boost die and other situational modifiers, and so you get players who try to like bullshit the DM to get themselves more dice, and I like systems that do that. There's a lot out there where you can get more dice in your dice pool because of X, Y, and Z. So like in Zafir, jumping behind cover and stuff like that has like tactical advantages, but it gets players thinking about using them in the game. Well, Star Wars is the same way. Okay, well, I want to get behind cover because that's going to give the enemy setback dice on their attacks. Is there cover in the room? In a D&D game, most people aren't asking about cover except the rogue who's like, I step behind a telephone pole, I have advantage, right?
Right. How I get advantage.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
everyone else is not like, is there a table I can step up on? Like it's how do I get advantage? And I like advantage. I love advantage as a mechanic. I especially love it over the years I spent playing 3.5 in Pathfinder, where it's like, okay, you are an orc, they are an elf, you're standing on a table, it's Tuesday, the moon is in its third phase, you're using a sword, so it's 13 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 minus 2 plus your flanking. No, advantage. But like there's certain times where people just don't think about stuff because they already have advantage, there's nothing else they can do.
Right.
Or whatever. But Star Wars and a few other systems get players going, is there something I can get behind? I should totally know this guy. I should have an advantage because I'm used to having these kind of conversations with black market like folks. I just like those aspects of RPGs.
Yeah, I started incorporating some other elements that wouldn't rely heavily on the advantage disadvantage so much. Yeah, another thing that I took from Cypher system is like you set a difficulty level for that person, but other players can help out. So it kind of facilitates this environment of like cooperation. So if they have things that make sense in that narrative to help that player out, say it's the barbarian that's trying to make a history check, it's going to be a very high difficulty level, but the wizard can help out. There's all these things that can help out and maybe like set the difficulty down some. So I'm gonna set the difficulty at like 7, and maybe the DC save is like I don't know, like 15. And so if they get those numbers down, if they get it all the way down to a 0, then they can just do it. But the numbers that they're able to get down will come from that like overall difficulty roll of like bringing that 15 down to like maybe a 12. So
right. And you get that. There's not a great way to put it. Like I said, I used bullshitting before, but you get people buying in to say, this is why you should make it easier for me. And so they start thinking about not just the scene around them. You'll find it's very interesting how many people interject things into their character backstory just because here's this reason I should be good at this thing. Okay, well, that's canon now. Like, if you spent every Tuesday night baking cookies with your grandma and that's why you should do well on this culinary check, that's a thing now. Like your character baked cookies every Tuesday, and I, as the GM, am going to find out a way to make that relevant.
So it's kind of an interesting like game design choice. D&D can get very like simulation-y, right? Like it feels like it's a way to simulate the whole world, and any kind of interaction between any player can be simulated. And so what happens is you have this list of skills, and that feels like all of the skills, like all the things that you'll ever do in the world. And so there's this tendency for players to look at their skill list and go, well, I want to do this. Let's see, what skill is that? What do I roll to do this thing or whatever? Right
Yeah.
now, I'm actually just going back to the drawing board on the non-combat skills in Zafir, because um, I leaned originally towards the D&D way of like make up a bunch of skills and like make all these modifiers for them. And I've kind of like leaned to the other way of like, let's just make this more collaborative storytelling. Like you're trying to negotiate with this gang boss of why he should pay you more for the job,
Right.
right? Well, why are you a good negotiator? Or why are you intimidating? Or why should he like do this for you? Like then sure, add more dice to your dice pool because that's cool that you want to do that. And it probably like I think that there's a bit of that makes players think on their feet a little more. It makes them
Right.
think about their characters as like real people with history a little more than just like a bunch of numbers on a piece of paper. You know what I mean?
That's
Mhm.
my love-hate relationship with the way that Star Wars does it. Is like, man, I love that it's making me think on my feet, but man, do I also hate when there's four people staring at me across the table and I have to really figure out what to do with all of this excess advantage, or okay, there's some threat. And I'm working on getting better, and that's one of the reasons I started GMing so much and doing so many of the things I'm doing is I want to get better at that, like improv and thinking on my feet and being flexible. Um, and I like and hate when games corner me into like, okay, well now what do, you jerk?
The flip side of that point that I just made, though, is that for new players who aren't that good at improv, who might be
Mm-hmm.
quieter people, introverts, giving them a list of options of things to do is very encouraging for someone to
Right.
make a decision, right? If I give you a blank slate, a whole bunch of people are going to go, awesome, I know exactly what to do. And a whole bunch
Yeah.
of other people are going to be like, I
Yeah.
don't know what to do. I can't
And
make a decision.
I I I see that in D&D, just like even in 5th edition, right? 5th edition is
Mm-hmm.
much more lax and just wing it kind of rules compared to 4th and 3rd. A lot of folks look and they see, okay, this is a social situation. There's two skills. There's intimidation and there's diplomacy. And I have a -1 charisma because when I built my character, it seemed like the least important thing. So I suck at this. I'm just not going to talk.
Right.
Okay, well,
And that's a bummer. You don't want that,
yeah.
right? You don't want someone to, well, if someone's character is like, yeah, I don't talk, that's part of the character, maybe that's fine. But if it's a person, your human being at your player at your table who's like, I don't feel like I can participate
Hmm.
because I don't think I'm clever enough. I don't think that I'm like, I don't know how to talk in character or whatever. That's really hard for people, and I think it's like I think it's an appropriate response for game designers to look at that phenomenon and try and design systems, or even if it's just a chapter or a paragraph in a chapter that says, hey, when you're role playing, you can ask for help. You can um, ask for the suggestions from the other players. Hey guys, what should I do? Right?
Yeah.
Hey DM, what would be? How do I solve this? I don't know, but I think my character might know how to solve it. How would my character solve this? Right?
So that's one of my big like hurdles as a GM. So I can bet that there's 15 things I'm not even thinking about from the game design side. Since you're a game designer, you have a person and they're playing a 20 intellect wizard, and they're standing in a room, and they, Johnny, the person, does not understand this trap. But you as the GM need to help facilitate, like, okay, you don't know this puzzle, but your guy would. Or you have a 20 charisma bard being played by a shy character. Okay, well, you don't know how to like do this social interaction, but your character would. She would get up there and she would spit game like nobody's business and convince the guards to let you in. And sometimes being the game master or the DM or the game designer or whatever, you need to think about that and put ways in there to get those people who,
Yeah.
hey, you don't have the answer here, but your character would. So don't be afraid to ask the GM and ask the other people at the table, like, hey, like, I would be good at this, right? Like, what should I do?
I always encourage players to be okay with being the narrator for their character at the table rather than like trying to play their character like an actor, right?
Right.
It's like okay if you're good at it and you're like, yes, I jump on stage and I lay down this epic rap against this, because you obviously having a rap battle against a dragon or something, right? But like if
Classic dragon rap battle. Got it.
if like you said, you got this shy character playing this really charismatic bard because they're individually trying to step out of their own comfort zone. I always tell them like, just tell us what your character does, and they can be like, you know, Shoshana the Great jumps onto stage and says these kinds of things, and it's
Right.
devastating, and that little bit of like separation sometimes actually helps build good role playing in people
Yeah.
until they get more comfortable, because sometimes it goes either way. I
And
actually,
it works that
when I
way
was
as the DM too. If you have a
absolutely,
DM, like when I'm running some of my more casual games, you'll find that I just describe what the person says instead of trying to do voices and stuff like that. But
mhm,
every bit of practice I get is a piece of experience I can draw on later.
yeah.
And
I used to be when I was a kid, I was like in improv class, and I'm a total extrovert and stuff, and so like I used to always do the voices and everything. And like as I've kind of gotten more mature, I don't know, maybe just older.
I was gonna
I,
say,
I've like found that I'm at a table and I'm like having a chill time. I'm hanging out with my friends. I'm like building this relationship. That sometimes it's like, oh right, to be like, yeah, this is what the old lady says to you. This is what she looks like, and it's not me so much as I'm describing this scene.
right.
I don't know if it's
Um,
good or
I
bad, but it's definitely a trend that I've had.
I'm way behind, but I'm catching up on Critical Role, and a lot of folks have that like, well, Critical Role gives people an unrealistic expectation of what D&D is, and I can see that to a point. And a lot of folks, there's nothing wrong with coming in and wanting to act in person, and
Yeah,
I wish more people were doing that, right? But if you are one of the people who's at the table or even not at the table, you're just thinking about D&D and D, and you're like, man, I don't think that I could spend 4 hours pretending to be, you know, that gnome character or whatever. Cool. Like there are D&D games out there that everyone's talking out of character, and it's just we're sitting around a table and we're essentially doing a board game night. Everyone's
yeah.
got
Kristen,
tacos and beer, and you're having a rap battle against a dragon, and you don't need to actually come up with the lyrics. You just need to be like, man, I rolled an 18. I spit mad game on that scaly ass.
yeah. Kristen, what are you and your games like as far as in person talking versus like third person talking?
I do like voices. I try to do voices, get into character, but that just yeah, like personal preference of what I like to do. Having just like I don't know, just trying out little silly voices. But I have some players that like, yeah, they're just like, I don't do voices. And I'm like, yeah, of course, that's like completely okay. So we have like a good mix of that. Yeah, I'm not gonna say that my voices are great at all, but yeah, like one game I started doing one voice and then another player had like a really thick country accent like for her character, and I couldn't remember what I was doing. I was like, what voice did I have? And I started taking over like the country voice, and it kind of like made for some fun shenanigans. I was like, why do I have a country voice all of a sudden? But yeah, I try to do like some silly, sometimes it's just like on the spot where yeah, I'm like playing a toad and I'm making like a Kermit voice, which just kind of sounds like terrible, but
One time
everyone,
I made a pit fiend be like an angry New Yorker. It just happens, and you don't really mean it.
Forget about
yeah,
it.
sometimes it makes for like some really funny times. Like we had one game and then the DM was doing this like like it was so disgusting, and we were like, no, like screaming the whole time, like, stop, no, we hate this. And he just kept on going with this like terrible like saliva type of voice. But sometimes it makes for a good time. There's been like some people on Twitter who are just like, hey, I don't do these voices, like, but I would like to incorporate them in my game. And I thought one cool thing that the Adventure Zone did was like sometimes they have like pre-recorded things, and then they put like the sound effects onto the voice. So like if it's an 8-bit like computer, then they can kind of put like that pixelated filter on the voice and kind of
Right.
have like some pre-generated like audio clips. We've had where we incorporated like creepy songs or like, you know, like little ghostly like girl singing in the background, you know. So that's like a cool way to incorporate audio if you don't really like want to do a
Right,
voice.
because the
You can't.
goal is to increase immersion for the player,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Hmm.
and so there's like a lot of ways to do that, and they're not all do silly voices, right? My favorite is handouts. Like,
Yeah.
here's a handout that like I got a different font, handwriting font than my own handwriting, and it's on like paper and has blood splatter on it. You know, that kind of thing helps a lot in getting people in the mood, as well as like you said, soundtracks in the background,
Hmm.
soundboard with sound effects, that kind of thing.
One of my first, when I first started Roll High Don't Die, it was on the tail end of RPG a Day. Do you guys know what RPG a Day is? I want to say it's August, so it's coming up. I'll look up exactly what month it is. But it started as every day of the month there's a question, and whether you tweet or Facebook post or make videos or what, you talk about the topic of the day, and then you use the hashtag RPG a Day or RPG
Yeah.
a Day slash
Okay.
whatever year it is. And so this was when I was first kicking off, like, I suck at social situations. I'm going to force myself to sit in front of a camera and talk to get better at talking, and then I will be thus better at DMing and other things. And they were just like quick 3 to 5 minute videos. Well, that led into, I want to keep doing this. So I started Roll High Don't Die, and I would pick things like non-combat encounters or character death, and I just pick a topic and talk about it for like 5 minutes and be like, this is my experience with this thing. What do you people of the internet think? And one of my first episodes was handouts. One of the guys who's in my Twitch chat right now, Steven, when we played in person, he went out and he got these little, like, they're a centimeter thick wooden chips, and he put stickers on all of them, and they represented like your trail rations, your potions of healing, your water for your canteen and stuff like that. And like, it was great because it gave you something to fidget with at the table, and it made the resource boring. Like, let me erase that I got 9 and put that I got 8 beef jerky sticks on my sheet. It turned that into like, oh yeah, you want a trail ration, I'll throw this chip at you, GM. Like, it was fun. So one of my first ones was like handouts. Cool, what kind of handouts do people like using? Because I play online now and handouts are really easy, but I'm always interested in seeing the things that people make to amplify their games.
Yeah, I get a little ridiculous with making stuff and having visuals in my game. I'm a very visual person, and I I also run a game for my sword fighting group. So there's usually like
You
a
can't just
lot of
casually mention that you have a sword
Yeah, I
fighting group.
forgot that was in your bio, and I was going to ask you about it, but we only have a few
oh
minutes left. You have to
yeah.
tell us about sword fighting, but continue
So
your point.
yeah, well, we play at our gym, so it's usually like this big open mat, and I like having something that like, 7, 8 people can look at and just be like try to get immersed in it. But I also incorporated, oh, I don't know if you can see it. It's right there. Yeah, I found like this uh I think it was for like elementary school teachers where they can like incorporate different shapes. But it was a D20, and that was like an extra incentive for my players if they got a nat 20 in combat. This was how they could do like extra damage. But I just wrote like different things on the side, and then they could like roll it on our big like gym mat and do extra damage. But yeah, I tend to get a little ridiculous with the
That is awesome.
visuals. Yeah, I made this like huge tavern for my current game on Tuesdays, but I know there's different forms. I do like incorporating like the kind of narration where you can just like kind of visualize, paint a picture in your head. I think
Right.
Jerry Holkins does like an excellent job with a Penny Arcade and C
Yeah, he
Team.
does.
C team, yeah.
Yeah, like the way that he paints a picture, I just yeah, those are goals to be
I
like, dang, the way that he just like compared it to this one thing is exactly how you paint like a picture of something. But
I was
yeah.
so excited when he started the C team because I
Mhm.
I had watched, or it started as audio only when Acquisitions Inc. started, and I listened to him all the way up through. But there was a couple of one shots where he ran like a Dark Sun game, and it wasn't Chris Perkins running; it was Jerry, and it was just such an interesting, different way of describing it because I like Chris Perkins. I like the thought and stuff that he puts into the game. But you're right. Hawkins has his own like good spin on painting a word picture, and so when he announced that he was doing C Team, I was just like, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate like both forms. I like to try to combine them. Yeah, and of course, like you don't need to go out all out with, these extensive props. I'm part of this one Facebook group who one person posted, they just made like this scene out of cardboard, but they they drew lines on it where it was kind of like the Take On Me video where it was like, yeah, I don't know how to quite describe it, but it made like dimensions in that cardboard. And then they had like little they took like some cotton from cotton ball to make like the foam on the beer. And so yeah, I mean there's definitely some really inventive ways to add that to your game.
I I move so much that I haven't got a like big giant pile of minis and not gone crazy with crafting because I already have my own like I got so much stuff. The wife's got to hate me because there's two project cars outside. One in the garage, one in the driveway. I got
I'm sure your wife
700,
doesn't hate you.
yeah, 800 pounds of RPG books that are normally in the china cabinet in the dining room because what else would you
She
put
knew
in a
what she
china
was
cabinet?
getting into.
Yeah, and then the board game pile. So I'm trying to like, especially now that I do so much gaming online, I'm trying to keep my actual physical stuff
Yeah.
Yeah.
down.
And Roll20 is really cool for that, being able to
Yeah,
plop down maps and do fog of war and all the stuff that the like game design, like the video game designer in me is like really happy with that software.
I
I was
I
gonna ask if Zafir is that the D20 system or
So
like
Zafir is a custom system
custom system.
designed actually kind of in response to D20 system. So you know how you're saying I'm gonna play this awesome rogue and then I rolled a bunch of ones and I didn't feel awesome at all.
Yeah.
It's kind of designed to counter that a little bit. There are a lot more situations in combat that you can. There's a lot more choices to make in combat to improve your odds of hitting. So if you're shooting at that guy and enemy soldier, they're in full cover. That's gonna be really hard to hit. But maybe you gain an elevation. Elevation gives you another dice in your dice pool. So more dice means more opportunities to hit. Or you can put yourself out of position, but maybe get flank them and get them out of cover. Or maybe your buddy can blow up their cover so that they're out of cover, and then you have a better chance to hit. Or maybe there's like all these different options to take. But
Mhm.
I found like I would play D&D, and I'm like I'm the ranger, and I shoot my bow, and then the next turn I shoot my bow, and the next turn I shoot my bow, and like
Right.
anywhere that I go on the whole battlefield, I get +5. That was my +5. If I get this position over here, it's +5. If I'm over here, it's +5. And I was kind of like, I guess I'll stand right here and just shoot you.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Here's
I saw a
no,
tweet.
please.
I saw a tweet where you were like 2 supporters away from 200. Did you reach that?
Yeah, we're like 208 now, so
Oh,
that's
nice.
going really good. Having a lot of good supporters. I'm running a little sweepstakes right now. Everyone that backs or increases their pledge until we get 300 supporters, I'm gonna do a big drawing, and I'll give away my $500 Dramatis Personae reward tier, which is I work with you and like create your character in the rulebook as a custom NPC.
Dang.
So for
That's
fans of Zafir,
snazzy.
check it out. Can I pitch my game? www.zafirgame.com and check out our Kickstarter.
I
Uh,
I don't
but
have
yeah,
links and stuff on my new overlay because I was trying to keep stuff kind of minimal.
just
But
write on some paper. No, I
in
don't
the
have it.
in the YouTube description and the Twitch description, and once I throw this on Anchor and everything, even once the Kickstarter's ended, there will be links to everything down below. So if you're listening to this at a later point, links to the thing down below.
Yeah. So then the second thing is you know what's really not fun as like a barbarian is when you're rolling this giant. I've got my great axe. It's a D12, and I rolled a 1, and I only did 4 damage or 5 damage, whatever. I've got really not swingy damage, so my damage dice are all like D3s, so they're like really short little damage. So it's a lot more about strategizing about who can hit who, how many hit points they have left. The other thing that's also a little different is that all the enemies are in like full public knowledge. You know exactly how many hit points they have left. You know exactly how many armor points they have. You know exactly their movement, their aiming skill. All that stuff is public knowledge. So
That's
it's
interesting.
it's actually it's really interesting. It almost the combat in Zafir tends to play almost more like a cooperative board game or a war game because everyone kind of has full knowledge and you're strategizing about how best to defeat the combat puzzle that is being like laid out for you.
So
So
you see more crosstalk, and it
tons
kind of
of
like
cross.
you would get for like a pandemic or something like that, where
Yeah,
it's like, well, you
exactly.
go here and do that, and then that will allow, because people have very different opinions on fourth edition,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll go ahead and burn me at the stake because I mentioned it in my podcast. But fourth edition was tactical, right? It was very
Yeah.
video gamey and crunchy and stuff like that. But even so, there was so many times where it just you did the same thing every turn. If you were a ranger in
And
fourth edition, you stood in one spot and you used twin shot like every
and
turn.
it was
And
really time consuming. The thing I always remember is I'd play fourth edition and it would be like 3 hours and we did one fight. And I was like,
yes,
how did that happen? In Zafir, combat combat encounters with 3 or 4 enemies take like 30 minutes. And it's not like because they're not fun or because they're just like easy. It's like the strategy happens pretty quickly and you don't
right.
need to spend 10 minutes trying to figure out what is your optimal move. You already kind of know because you're working with your teammates.
Mhm.
Zafira is kind of an interesting initiative mechanic in that every turn um, you're going to play just around the table in order, but every turn you get to choose who goes first on the player character's team. So
Okay.
uh, so rather than try and like make a complex order or something, I just kind of went with pretty straightforward. But you still get to strategize. Like let's say you're playing the sapper. Sapper's like an explosives
Yeah.
specialist, and you're like, okay, well I'm going to go first because those 3 guys are behind that cover, and I can blow up that cover with my grenade, and then everyone else can go. And then the next turn says, well, hey, actually, my ability that panics enemies, and there's that powerful guy there. I'll go first to try and panic him first, and then he'll be out of the way for that round. And so that it gives players both a little bit of initiative, them like just a will to make cool moves first and help out their team, without it being like super complex, like an initiative system or like a
I like that it's kind of in between the two because you said you haven't played Edge of the Empire yet, but Edge of the Empire's initiative system, you both sides roll, and then that just awards you slots. And then as the turn progresses, someone can jump into any slot. So it'll
oh,
be
that's pretty cool.
PC, NPC, PC, PC, NPC, NPC. And so the person who wants to go first can just say, "I'm going to take the first turn because I got blank ready to
The
go,"
first
and that will
PC
come blank.
slot.
Right, and so they
Yeah, yeah.
take, and
Oh, that's
then the
pretty cool.
GM picks the NPC slot, and then two more PCs. You guys can talk it out and decide which go. But sometimes you get locked in, like, no, I should go second, and so kind of
Yeah,
being in that middle ground where it's like, who's got the coolest thing and needs to go first, and why, and then once you're set on that and go, this is the most important first turn, everyone else is kind of falling into the rotation. That's a nice middle ground so that you don't have five. No, you go. No, I'm saving
yeah.
my thing. Okay, well then I'll. No, she should. And
And in
those.
playtesting, it's
Yeah,
worked really well. It's people have like really been like, oh yeah, okay. Oh, you're gonna use your like buff spell? Yeah, sure. Of course you go first.
yeah, knock it out,
Yeah.
man. Buff the
There's
whole team.
no arguments and stuff. And then it just makes like sense because it's like playing a board game. Oh yeah, we go around to the left.
Bam,
Yeah, in
easy.
Shadow of the Demon Lord game, the initiative works where if you're just gonna move, then you go first, and
Oh
then it's
nice.
the NPCs, and then the people who are gonna do a move and an action. So it's kind of divided like that. So I kind of incorporated that in my game as well. Like if people just want it to move, then they can like go first, and then yeah, I'm not organizing it exactly like that, but like, yeah, if you just want to move and you don't want to do like any other action, like let's just get it out of the way.
Get
So
it done, and
yeah,
let's move on.
let's do
I'm
just
a big fan of stuff that makes combat more streamlined. It,
hmm
as long as it's okay with everybody, right?
Yeah.
If it makes it more streamlined and you like get through it a little faster, that I'm
yeah.
always I'm always
I
for that.
I played in a lot of forum games, especially when I was overseas and when I was deployed and stuff
Uh,
like that, because it was really easy to just like, oh, I gotta check once a day. Okay, cool. Okay, I'm at work. I have a lot of time like where I'm near a computer, but it's a government computer and it's slow internet. A message board functions at least. I can
right.
still play D&D even though I can't like roll 20 or whatever. And play by post games are just like glacier speed to begin with, but there's so many people that want to like try to still play it like you would at the table, and it's like, how about whoever logs in first can just take their turn, and if everyone's cool with that, bam, all the players, we'll roll the dice and see which side goes first, and then just y'all all go, because I don't want to wait 3 days for Johnny to log in and then he takes his turn, but then so and so had logged in 2 days ago and Johnny hadn't acted yet, so then we got to wait 2 more days. No, like
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
anything you can do to speed up the game, do it. And I took a lot of those concepts from forum games and try to keep them in mind for in-person games where it's little incentives. Like we had a Pathfinder game that ended up having like 7 players or something asinine like that, and it was like,
7 players can take a long time.
yeah. And so we started doing the like, okay, if I say your turn and you immediately start saying things, +2 on your attack, +2 on whatever you're doing, because you knew what you were going to do. If you got to like think about it, skip. We'll come back to you.
Yeah. Sorry, wizard. If you
Yeah.
haven't looked at your spell list since last
Yeah.
turn and you gotta decide
And
again,
I
come on.
I felt kind of bad because like as the barbarian or who the fighter, it was always just
Smash.
like a smash, cool. But there's so many times where the wizard would be like, I know what I'm going to do, and then the guy on the turn before him, or the girl two before him, would like run into the middle of the room, and it's like, crap.
Don't kid yourself. The wizard would still fireball.
Yeah,
I
my favorite fireball meme is like firebolt is sincerely so and so, and fireball is to whom may concern. Yeah.
yeah,
I was
Yeah.
like trying to figure out how to
it's
when exactly, but
I want to note that we just froze with me making the greatest face imaginable on the stream for like 5 seconds. So I'm so glad that was recorded. It's like gunslinger. I've got a bullet with this guy's name on it. Wizard. Yeah, well, I got a fireball addressed to who it may concern. And then
Yeah.
there's like a Warhammer meme or whatever where there's a guy in a tank and it's like, attention grid coordinates.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I loved my fireball spell.
We are at just past an hour. We're actually at an hour and 10 minutes. So final questions, comments, concerns, and then we'll go ahead and wind down. Somebody, one last topic, and then we'll get out of here.
It's just awesome to hang out and chat with you guys. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, like I said, I like these things to be casual. I threw out the word interview when I first started tossing them around, and a lot of folks were like, interview, that's kind of weird. And then I kind of backed away from that and was like, well, I'll have a bunch of topics around, but if we're just talking about memes and stuff, so if that's what happens, that's what happens. And I try to keep them short so they're like an hour, because one of the things I dislike about trying to keep up with actual plays is I don't often have time to like handle a 4-hour like game, and this is somebody who streams actual play games. Like I am aware that not everyone's going to sit through a 4-hour video, but yeah, I think they're cool. I think it's nice to just sit and meet people and nerd out. And like I said, some of these lead into games, and sometimes my games lead into like, hey, everyone from this one shot want to sit around and talk about stuff? Let's do it. Hashtag Lord Cluck.
That's my favorite thing to do, just like nerd out about games and all the nerdy things. And yeah, if you love Star Wars, play those RPG games. They're so much fun. I love incorporating the dark side to some of those judgment calls, and how much or how far you go on the dark side. I think that's a really cool mechanic of the Star Wars games. and yeah, try other systems and new
Yeah, I'm looking
content.
forward to checking these out.
Um,
Yeah.
I one of my guests on my last show is like super nerding out about Edge of the Empire right now, so I'm
Mhm.
looking at teaching him Roll20 and doing some Star Wars things in Roll20. So since both of y'all have Star Wars experience, here's my
Mhm.
official like I'm actually keeping an eye out for 2 to 3 people who want to play Star Wars via Roll20 at some point.
I
Yeah,
Um,
will
that'd be
always
awesome.
play Star Wars. Yeah, the character that I had was like he was a droid, but he was like OG G3 or something. Like he was kind of a gangsta droid. So yeah, and my favorite experience or moment that happened in that game is a fellow player stole like a gun from a character and try to sell it back to them. So
I
it was really ridiculous.
Steven's in my Twitch chat right now, and he's a guy that did the handouts and stuff like that, and
Uh-huh.
he loves just being like that guy in a lot of my
Oh
games. And I ran the Beyond the Rim module, which is like the first one, sans starter sets, but like the first full campaign module for Edge of the Empire.
yeah. Hmm.
And between him and my wife, it was just like chaos. She's normally like the giant Wookiee barbarian slash whatever
Yeah.
meat stick character, so she was playing a Deveronian like bounty hunter woman marauder that just like why talk when you can punch. And then Steven's character was a Shadra fan who was a demolitions expert, but he had been around too many explosions and lost most of his hearing, so he could no longer pronounce his actual name because their language is based on pitch and stuff like that. So
Oh.
every time an NPC asked names and stuff like that, and in every session, he would just change his name. And so it was whoever in the group was like, yeah, and this is Scruffles McButtfluff, and that was his name for the rest of the session was Scruffles McButtfluff. Um, but he went through probably a solid like 45 names over the course of the
That's
like
awesome.
10 sessions.
We had
Um,
like a disease that one of our characters came up with like to uh I guess deceive another NPC, and he called, or I guess it's a thing in England, collywobbles. So he used that in one game, but then we also used it as a like intergalactic disease in Star Wars. So
you call it the Collywobbles?
collywobbles, yeah. So well, and I just did it's like a Star Wars fully immersive virtual reality in Orlando, Florida.
I've
So
heard
I'm
like
kind
4
of like
people talk about it now.
it's so good. I'm like I mean, I'm always like a big fan, but yeah, now on kind of like another kick kind of
My
inspired me.
coworker just did it like 3 weeks ago and keeps like,
It's-
"Hey, you like Star Wars? Yeah, Dave, you brought it up like 6 times now. You went to the thing. I know. I gotta go check it out." Um,
Yeah.
but I am gonna go ahead and wind down here before
Mhm.
y'all distract me too much with nerding out about Star Wars. Um, if you're not already on my Discord, feel free to join my Discord.
Awesome.
Even if you don't, I'll keep you two in mind. It'll probably be like mid to late July. We're still waiting on the baby to come home and stuff like that. But it would
Oh.
probably be I have a one shot, but there's also a 3 to 5 session game where I'm it's super casual because multiple people in the group will be new to Roll20, new to Star Wars: Edge of the Empire, or both. So
Yeah.
just know that coming in.
Yeah,
But
there's definitely a learning curve with some of that stuff.
but you are both cordially invited to nerd out. And
Thank you.
other than that,
Awesome.
it's been real fun, guys. Cool.
Yeah, great to
Yeah.
meet you,
Thank
Kristen.
Nice to meet you and you. Yeah, and thanks for having me.
Yep. Look forward to doing this stuff in the future. So bye, everybody.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye.